So I saw that you have been fighting the good fight for a long time in regards to ensuring that there are equitable and fair accesses to healthcare um, across poverty or racial lines. Could you speak a bit
Mm-hmm.
more about how you think COVID-19, I mean, one, will impact our society, or how it will continue to reveal things about our society that are often not discussed in public forums, and perhaps more pertinently, could you talk about the effect of COVID-19 on voting? Like, do you think folks are going to start voting more so with COVID-19's impacts in mind? How do you think it will change the way that we vote as a people, as a community, as within your community, et cetera, et cetera?
I have a lot of thoughts about that, Kiki. Um, 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 so let's go from dreary to more hopeful. Is that okay?
It's a great way to end.
I have been watching the map. I've been juxtaposing the infection rates and the death rates of the map over the political map. And the majority of people who have died of COVID 19, and that's no small number of people. We are over 90,000 deaths in the US at this point, and we are on track to hit closer to 200,000 probably if we don't have some change. And that change may be altered by this rush to reopen things. Um, so, the majority of those 90,000 deaths percentage wise, have been people of color, right? About 70% of those people have been people of color. That doesn't mean that the majority of that deaths are just in Black communities. That's not what I'm trying to say. But the majority of those deaths who have died of COVID have been Black people um, and brown people. And when I juxtapose that on the political map, most of those deaths have been in densely populated urban areas. And most of those densely populated urban areas, not all of them, but the vast majority of them have been blue areas, right? um, so I have no scientific evidence of that. I'm not suggesting any kind of conspiracy to target where people die. I'm not saying that. I'm just stating an observation that I'm making when I think about the cost of COVID 19 in the electoral process, that those urban areas have been hit very hard by this virus. And those votes, we know whether they were going to be Republican votes or Democratic votes, they will not be votes at all. And that brings me great sadness. That's out of people who would have been voting if they would have been voting. So I'm paying attention to that. I'm paying attention to the concentration of where COVID is. And I find that to be very dreary. Um, this is dreary, but I find it to also be hopeful that COVID has not just exposed the vulnerability of different affinity groups of people, whether that be by race or whether it be by age or whether it be by class or whether it be by comorbidities, whatever you're looking at. COVID has laid bare for us those who are most vulnerable and those who are not most vulnerable. And the practices of our administration have laid bare also the value that our current elected officials place on life and don't place on life. So we are reopening our country not because our numbers have decreased, not because the death rate has been sustained in a decline, not because infection rates have sustained in a decline, not because we have secured enough PPE equipment to say that everyone can wear a mask, not just be asked to wear a mask, but has access to a mask, has access to sanitizer and those things that we need to keep ourselves safe. We are not opening back up because we found a vaccine. We are not opening back up because we've even discovered everything there is to discover about this virus. We're not opening back up because we now know exactly what population is most impacted, because we started saying it was elders, and then middle-aged people started dying, and then we started saying it was comorbidities, and then babies started dying, and children are being impacted in a different way right now. So we're not opening up for any of those reasons. We're opening up because our economy is sliding into a deep recession, and that is important, but it is not as important as human life. And even in the sliding into this deep recession, our answer to that is to pour money into big businesses, and pour money into opportunities for those who already have more than they need to reach more. And so even our formula for stimulating the economy has nothing to do with putting significant money into the hands of people who purchase and buy um, who purchase and buy those kinds of resources that would actually stimulate the economy, right? And all of that is based on the racism of this country. And so the exposure of those things, which really COVID-19 does not discriminate between those who have or who have not, but the economic policies of this country do. And those policies are on trial, in my opinion. Our racist ways, our classist ways are on trial, in my opinion. And what we are finding is those who are less cared for, those who are less valued, are seen as expendable in this country, and whose needs are not yet being met. And so, what I'm hoping, which is hopeful for me, what I'm hoping is that once again, the laying bare of this will motivate people to go to the polls, um, to change their own um, projections for a future by voting for people who can impact their lives in a different way. And that won't stop with just pulling the lever for someone different than who we have, but it has to be a consistent and constant pressure, not just from the White House, but from the White House to the State House, to the schoolhouse, to every election we have. We have to um, hold candidates responsible in a different way. And we know that life can be different, because when the economy was pressured, then all of a sudden we figured out how to give people money who weren't working. When the economy was pressured, all of a sudden we started having conversations about how to make sure those who have insurance or can afford insurance or not are taken care of as far as their health is concerned. And if we can do that in moments when those who have the most are threatened, and that's the only reason we did it, then we certainly can do it so that everyone has a quality of life. And so I am hopeful in this election season that what COVID-19 has done is expose for those who needed to see, who did not believe, or who were just turning a blind eye, that we are all connected, and that when you deny health care to the least of these, then those with the most will suffer too in moments like this. And when you deny people the right to make a living wage, then what happens when we have pandemics or even epidemics that take us to the brink of disaster? What happens is those people who are the vast majority, who are not in the 1%, have less than $400 in liquid cash and become a burden on our systems rather than a blessing to our systems. And I'm hoping that this opens not just the eyes of those who are marginalized economically or socially, or politically, but opens the eyes of those who want to maintain the stability that they have in their lives, and may finally realize that until we all are stable, that none of us are stable. And until no one is vulnerable, all of us are vulnerable. And that is the hope of this moment, at a great cost, because 90,000 lives is too high of a price to pay just to be able to face the truth.
No, of course, none of us are free until all of us are free. It's been an honor, Reverend Blackmon. Thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom and for your words and again for your time. It's been my pleasure to interview on the implications of race and voting and faith for the duration of this interview.